Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear friends, we are going into the breach in more ways than one, aside from just this conversation. So what's going on?
Well, lots going on. Before we even get into the meat and potatoes of the show, I know that you went to the Planned Parenthood clinic yesterday. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
I saw some of the stuff on social media.
Yeah, I don't know why Facebook wouldn't allow me to do it. I took a couple of 1-minute videos down in front of Planned Parenthood on Bleecker Street in New York City. I've mentioned it before on shows past. The first Saturday procession takes place the first Saturday of every month from Old St. Patrick's Cathedral down to Planned Parenthood. For the last several months, the lunatics weren't out, and by the lunatics, I mean a group called Pro-Choice New York, very similar in their tactics and their antics to Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And I got there, and they were particularly vicious. This particular week, there was not as many of them as let's say as there are of us. And when I say us, I say prayer warriors. The whole thing is being organized by the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, namely Father Fidelis Moshinsky, which you could look him up to. He does a Red Rose Rescue. But it was pretty telling. If you get a chance, go on Joseph Pasillo on Facebook. If you search for it, you'll see my ugly mug. Many of you are friends with me already. I put 2 short videos up there. Two things I want to point out. One is the one video shows their stupid slogans and their chanting and they're singing their dumb songs. And the other one shows what Planned Parenthood really doesn't want you to see, which is an ambulance in front of Planned Parenthood. Okay. Now, I was told by somebody who was actually counseling this woman on the sidewalk that this woman went into Planned Parenthood because her IUD was giving her problems. And evidently, there was a danger of it becoming infected or she was feeling ill. Nonetheless, she was there for women's health care. Let's get this through your head. That Planned Parenthood has nothing to do with women's health care, because you would think that Planned Parenthood could do something to help this woman. You know what they did? They called the ambulance and they showed her the door. She waited for the ambulance on the sidewalk, and it was one of the prayer warriors that went over to her sidewalk counselors to talk to her, and she told them what exactly was going on. Then, as I said a couple weeks ago, when the ambulance came by, the ambulance shuts its sirens about a block away. They come up, they pull on the side of the building. They don't want anybody videotaping them. One of the ambulance drivers yelled to a friend of mine and said, "Why are you videotaping me?" And the guy, my friend reminded him, "I have a constitutional right to do so." Okay. And then they quietly drove away and then turned the siren on when they were a block away. But nonetheless, my point in bringing it up is this was a woman who was in pain and potentially had an infection because of a contraceptive device that was inside of her. And Planned Parenthood had no solution for her other than to show her the door. I'm not exaggerating. This is what I was told by those who were on the scene talking to this woman.
And that's what you saw.
And that's what I saw. And the video of the ambulance and the video of the lunatics, there's 2 of them, are on my page, on the Joseph Pasillo page on Facebook. But it shows, aside from doing what we're doing here at this breach, and Joe and I are in the breach Sunday nights, 8 o'clock at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, as particularly men who are pro-life, we need to start making our presence known in a number of different ways. One of which is, number one, to be unapologetically pro-life when talking to friends, family, and everything else. I'm not apologizing for my pro-life position. You need to apologize for your pro-death position as far as I'm concerned, okay? The other thing I wanted to, you mind if I get into this for 1 second? So I was watching, there's a great video. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. A great 11-minute video. Go on Mike Church on the Crusade channel and just go on YouTube and put in "Do You Stand with Alyssa Milano and Planned Parenthood?" Okay, and it's an 11-minute basically appeal. And in the case of Mike Church, he's down in Louisiana, for Southern men to step up and start to create sanctuary cities within their states. Because I don't know if you knew this, we've gotten a lot of and this ties into something that Joe and I constantly talk about judges. Louisiana has, Mike Church points this out, Louisiana has passed 6 pieces of pro-life legislation, all of which have been blocked by judges. That Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, I think it's Missouri, and Ohio all have, or in Georgia, excuse me, not Missouri, Georgia, have all passed pro-life legislation. One of the more famous ones is, or more popular ones is the heartbeat bill in Georgia, blocked by judges. Now, see, this is important for people to know. So what Mike Church was doing is he was trying to suggest, what are we going to do, especially as men? If you remember something, and this is my take on it, when you look at the map of the electoral map of this country, okay, and they remember the red and blue maps,
sure.
The entire country is red, except for certain pockets that are heavily populated, where you have a lot of, let's say, a lot of leftists, okay? I got to believe a lot of those municipalities, a lot of those counties, a lot of those states, what we could do and what his recommendation was, we need to start creating, like they do with the illegal immigration, which we'll get into in a minute, whether or not we could say that in New York City. We need to do that with abortion. We need to do that with abortion. We need to start in our municipalities, through our mayors and through our city council, saying, no, we're not, no, Planned Parenthood can't set up shop here. They do it with booze. There's, you know that East Hanover, let's say, is a dry town.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so if you have a BJ's or a Costco in East Hanover, New Jersey, it's a dry town. No bars, no liquor stores. They do it with booze. Why can't we do it with abortion?
And also, I think a lot of Democrats do not believe in abortion, but sadly, it's not a driving factor to change their vote. I think you have to relook at that. Relook at the facts, the science behind abortion, what it does to the child as well as to the woman, and that might be a game changer.
But
something to think about.
Really, and Mike Church made a good point. Okay, is that if men lead on this issue, that women will follow. That women will see men standing up for life. All right, which is what we all as men need to be doing. I'm actually thinking, I'm going to take a cue from Mike Church. I'm actually thinking maybe I'm going to craft an email, send it to one of our good representatives in our state. We do have some good representatives in New Jersey. Chris Smith being one of them from down the shore. Outstanding guy, pro-life, solid as a rock. Okay, United States Congressman. I bet you there's a lot of municipalities in his district that he could reach out to, maybe talk to the mayors, talk to the city councils, and try to say, you know what, let's start fighting the federal government. I think Mike Church called it the tyranny that's coming from Washington through the judges.
Maybe we can get Chris Smith on.
Maybe we can get Chris Smith on the show. Eventually we will. We'd love to talk to him, especially we're New Jersey guys. He's a Jersey guy. You don't associate pro-life members of the United States Congress with New Jersey, but Chris Smith is one, and vocal. More importantly, he's a vocal guy in defense of life, and we need to start taking this cue. Let's start causing problems for them. The same way de Blasio says he wants to make New York City a sanctuary city, and Gavin Newsom wants to turn California into sanctuary state because they don't want to abide by federal law on immigration. We don't want to abide by federal law or the oligarchs on the Supreme Court, and we want to ban abortion in our towns. And again, send in the National Guard. What are you going to do? Force us to perform abortions? We don't want them to even be set up. That's one solution. So by listening to other people, as Joe and I always emphasize to our audience, we listen to other people. I was listening to Mike Church. This is a great video. I implore you, after the Frontline with Joe and Joe, do not leave the Frontline with Joe and Joe, because we are in the breach. But it's the Crusade channel / Mike Church on YouTube. And just look up the video. So, do you stand with Alyssa Milano and Planned Parenthood? Very informative, offering some real solutions for men to step up. In his appeal, he was appealing to the men of the South. In Joe and Joe's appeal, we're appealing to the men of the North, particularly New Jersey. I met a lot of them yesterday. I meet them when I go when I go and pray in front of Planned Parenthood. These are good, solid men, former cops, firemen, contractors, construction workers. These are blue collar guys, okay, who stand up for the truth and pray rosaries in front of the death chamber down on Bleecker Street. So it's a great video. I suggest everybody go and watch it. And again, also to emphasize what Joe and I are going to emphasize tonight on our show, the need to support Donald J. Trump, because he's gotten 150 judges up to this point, and when he gets reelected, he's going to get another 150 judges. Important. So important. And we're at that front line, 8 o'clock every Sunday night, speaking the truth to anybody who's willing to listen. And the ones who are willing to listen tonight, just to give a quick shout out, we got Maureen, we got Rita, Roseanne, John, Vinny, Inez, and we got a bunch of people watching us right now. So welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. And now we're going to get into some spaghetti and meatballs tonight.
Nice,
all right?
Nice. And also shout out to Jonathan Ross with HolyFaith Media. He does a great job with our content every week. It's something you should look into as far as subscribing to his YouTube channel as well. He has a lot of good content outside of us as well.
Yep.
Okay, let's get into it. We're going to start with the UK because clearly Christianity has given way to atheism in the UK. So here's our story. Christian actress sues theater after being fired over Facebook comments. Something that applies to all of us, particularly me, because I'm very vocal on Facebook and have been for many years. Let me give you a little bit of background. Her name is Say Omumba. She's an African actress. She was starring in a musical. The musical was The Color Purple, before being let go over Facebook comments expressing her biblical view of homosexuality. She was tagged on Twitter by a Hamilton, as in the show Hamilton actor, Aaron Lee Lambert, with a screenshot from September 18, 2014, in which she stated, let me quote it, "She did not believe people could be born gay." A lot of scientists agree with her, by the way. "And that Christians should stand up for what they believe in." She went on to say, "It is clearly, as the Bible goes, in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9 through 11. I do not believe homosexual practice is right. Though the law in this land made it legal, it doesn't mean it's right." Then she states, "I am tired of lukewarm Christianity. Be inspired to stand up for what you believe in and the truth." She should be on the show.
I was going to say, she should be on this show. God bless her. Stand up for the truth.
Well, needless to say, she was fired from her job.
Yeah.
That's her livelihood. What did she say? Basically, what she's saying is, A, I'm a Christian. B, I believe what's in the Bible. Now, I don't know the laws in the UK. I don't know, like, we have the First Amendment, and that protects us.
I would imagine they're supposed to have free speech in the UK, but go ahead.
But clearly, there have been, you know, the law has been twisted in the past. I mean, the law made slavery legal. It was legal to own a human being in the United States. Clearly, that was wrong. Abortion is legal. Clearly, that is wrong. I say that because of this. We are one president, radical president away
from a disaster.
And 3 Supreme Court justices.
Can we stop there for a second? I want to hammer this point home. We've spoken about it before. I want to speak it to you again. Okay? Remember something. If Donald Trump, when he got elected, when his first judicial nominee came up, and he nominated Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court, and for those of you who don't remember, that was Obama's fig leaf to try to get a moderate through in the end of his administration, okay, who nonetheless was pro-abortion, but would probably be moderate in other things. And on the surface, even if you're pro-choice, you say, he doesn't seem like a radical. Had Donald Trump nominated Merrick Garland, there would have been no Russia hoax. There would be no whistleblower hoax. There would be no Stormy Daniels. There would have been none of it. You know why? Because the left would have said, oh, he's good. Let's just shut up. Maybe he'll nominate more Merrick Garlands. Maybe he'll nominate his sister. Maybe he'll nominate other people who are moderate on other things, but are pro-choice. There would have been no vicious attack on Donald Trump. But he nominated the people on a list that he promised he would nominate people from, which included Neil Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and others. Because remember, we said last week, Donald Trump has gotten 150 judges sitting on the circuit court, the federal court, and the Supreme Court. That's his sin, ladies and gentlemen. That is why he's the most evil man in human history for the leftists. Has nothing to do with immigrants. Has nothing to do with tearing apart families at the border. Obama was doing that. Nobody had anything to say about it. It's got nothing to do with standing up to China. The left used to favor tariffs. Donald Trump imposed tariffs. The left is supposed to be in favor of that. It all has to do with the judges.
And that's why I voted for him, and that's why you should vote for him.
We have to tell all our people, everybody we know. I know people who did not vote for Trump the first time, who have said flat out, based on 2 things. Number one, he followed through on judges, okay, and nominating conservative, originalist Supreme judges all across the judiciary, and also they see what the left is doing. And these people who are sane, who rightfully maybe were hesitant to vote for Donald Trump in 2016, have said, I'd be crazy not to vote for Donald Trump in 2020. That's what we have to emphasize to people. Get out. If Joe and Joe have one issue and only one, it's the judges.
Well, absolutely.
Right.
But getting back to this, this woman, Miss Amumba, she's being basically asked to choose between her faith and her career.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I hate to say it, that's coming here, my friends.
Yep.
That's coming here. And that's why we need people to stand up for the law, because that's the only thing that's going to protect us, because it is politically incorrect to say what we're saying right now.
Right.
And clearly it was politically incorrect for what she said. She lost her job. She'll most likely be blacklisted.
You want to know what's more heroic about this woman? God bless her. What's more heroic about her is that they offered her a settlement, and she said no. She said, no, I'm going to do this for the money. I wanted to play this role. They called, you remember something, you're always the most, if you're on the left and you're in the arts, I know this as a former actor in another life, you could be the actors are the next Marlon Brando or the next Robert De Niro, and this guy's a director like David Mamet's a perfect example. David Mamet, cutting edge playwright, gritty, Chicago in the 1970s and the 1980s. He wrote Glengarry Glen Ross, American Buffalo. Okay, he was brilliant. David Mamet. All of a sudden, he came out a few years ago, said, you know what? I reassessed what it is that I believe. I'm actually conservative. They blackballed him. All of a sudden, he became a terrible playwright. He didn't really make that good movies at all. And he really was an overrated playwright. They're going to do the same thing. They called this girl a force of nature. The critics called this girl Amuba. What's her name, right? Say Amuba. A force of nature as a talent. That's what they called her. All right? They wanted her to play this role. And because she doesn't toe the party line, what do I always say, Joe? Because she didn't adapt herself, she now has not only lost that part.
Oh, she's going to lose her career.
She rejected the settlement, and the agents won't touch her.
You know what's interesting, I find, is in the 50s, during like the Hoover movement, Hollywood was persecuted. People committed suicide. People had to move to Mexico. They had to leave the country. They moved to Europe. They're now doing the same thing.
Right.
As far as what was done to them.
Right.
They were persecuted when people considered them a communist, and many times they weren't communists. They just held like views to the left. Maybe some of them were. I mean, I didn't.
Right. The problem with that is a lot of that all gets politicized. Okay, whenever the left makes a demon out of anybody, I always automatically want to know more about the guy they're trying to vilify. So there's a lot of open questions about McCarthy and his tactics. And the way he went about things. But the fact is, you're right. There's a lot of people who are just innocent. This is the 1940s. Let's say communism, was obviously alive and well. The American intelligentsia applauded communism. And in fact, funny enough, the American intelligentsia applauded fascism up until World War II, okay, when our two biggest opponents, obviously, all three, Japan, Italy, and Germany, were all fascists. But fascism was okay in the coffee houses in New York City also. My point is that a lot of people flirted with it. A lot of people went to meetings. But there were some dyed-in-the-wool, useful idiots, as Stalin called them, working to undermine America because they were, in fact, communists. Now, again, you're right. If people didn't like that, then why would you employ the same tactics against this woman?
That's what I'm saying.
And here's the thing. I want to know where the feminists are that are going to come out and back up this woman. She's a woman. I want to know where Black Lives Matter is. She's a black woman.
She's a black woman.
Okay? And God bless her again. She was offered a settlement, and she said no. And she's suing. And God willing, she wins. She wins. See,
and that's what people understand. They understand when you sue them. We covered a story a while ago in Oberlin College in Ohio, where a few black students in Oberlin College, they were basically stealing in a bakery. The school automatically assumed that they were being persecuted and tried to drive the bakery out of business. They were telling the truth. They got $33 million out of Oberlin College. That is what they understand.
Hit them right between the eyes.
You have to be merciless with money.
Right.
Sadly, shame doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah.
What's right or wrong to them doesn't mean a thing. What they understand, because God is money to them.
Yeah.
So you take it. You say, okay, I'm going to get myself a vicious New York lawyer, and we're going to the mat.
That's right.
And I'm taking your money. Because I live in the United States of America, and in the United States of America, I have a right to choose my religion.
Mm-hmm.
I have a right to practice my religion. I also have a right to speak freely.
That's right. They forget about the First Amendment, JoJo.
They don't like it.
They don't like the First Amendment.
And a lot of our stories tonight are going to revolve around that.
That's right, because the First Amendment, even though it's under vicious assault from the left, is still alive and well. And again, we're going to say it one more time, but don't take it for granted. Just because it very clearly states in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution that the right to free speech shall not be abridged, doesn't mean they're not trying. Doesn't mean that they're not like the hounds of hell, all right, trying to get these judges to, under the idea of hate speech. In this case, obviously, this woman, say, Booba, is a hater. She hates people because she holds to the natural law and biblical view on homosexuality. Okay?
She doesn't hate homosexuals.
She said that flat out. She goes, I love everybody. I think she said I think she actually said all people are in need of repentance. And she said, I love everybody. But she doesn't shy away from the fact that amongst those sins that people, all of us, human beings, can commit, on that list of human activity that is considered sinful is sodomy. Not the state, let's be clear. If you have a same-sex attraction and don't act on it, the church teaches that you have a disordered sexual desire, okay, for which there is help. I know that will get your head chopped off too.
Brains just
but the act itself, sodomy, all right,
well, not just
is
sodomy,
condemned.
Any type of physical
Right,
contact.
but in this case, we're talking about, obviously this is what she's talking about. And of course, and what the arrogance of this guy from Hamilton to hold up her post that she put out from 5 years ago to say, do you still believe this? How about, I don't care you're going to be Grand Inquisitor? Because you're going to demand that I give you an answer. Do I still believe it? So I still do. What's the problem? I thought we're supposed to have diversity in our culture. All sorts of ideas.
I thought we're going to be
all supposed to be about tolerance. Well, it ain't too tolerant for the lefties out there. All right? Well, we started the show talking about what goes on in front of Planned Parenthood. A bunch of prayer warriors praying the rosary from Old St. Patrick's Cathedral down to Planned Parenthood is met with not quite violent yet, but very, very vigorous opposition, getting up in people's faces. And what are we really doing? We're praying. Not praying at people, praying for people, all right? Praying the rosary, exercising our First Amendment rights, not only to free speech, the freedom of association, and freedom of religion, okay? And what do? They would love it if a judge turned around and said that we didn't have the right to do that, which for a while almost flew with some of these judges in this country. Then some sane judges stepped in and said, no, these people have a right to protest. My point is, it's clear that this woman had a right to speak out, and hopefully she wins her lawsuit. I hope she gets $50 million. I hope she never has
her own theater.
That's right. She'll start her own theater company, and she could star in The Color Purple. We say from the front line with Joe and Joe to you, say, Amumba, God bless you, and we're on your side.
Absolutely.
We're on your side. Let's give a couple quick shout-outs, Joe. You're at the front line with Joe and Joe, Sunday night, 8 o'clock, sharp, on Facebook Live. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. Special thanks to Jonathan Ross at HolyFaith Media. Special thanks to Joe Campo. I want to just, Karen's checking in. Aldo's checking in. We got Maureen. Mike's checking in. Rita's checking in. So Karen, you're going to close out your weekend with a real good show tonight. We promise you.
And Aldo, I see your son on the train. I see he's in the workforce. I love it. It's good stuff. I saw him in the morning. I was happy to see that. Let's go to New York City. Sadly, our friend Bill de Blasio is in the news again. Always entertaining, Mr. de Blasio.
Is he sickening, or is he entertaining?
A little bit of both. We'll get into it a little bit here. New York will impose a $250,000 fine for calling someone an illegal alien or threatening to report them to ICE.
I'm glad we were talking about free speech.
$250,000 fine. This is also the second time they've done this. This is something we mentioned in previous shows, another little gem that New York has put out. This was, if you don't remember it, employers and landlords are restricted from using gender pronouns other than those chosen by their employees and tenants. This carries another $250,000 fine. But let's get back to the one we're talking about regarding illegal immigrants.
I'm sorry,
it's insane.
I can't help but laugh at Comrade de Blasio. I have to my insides burst when I think.
But this is an attack on free speech. Because first of all, these people are illegal. They are illegal.
Well,
This is factual. They did not come here through the process. So what he's saying is you are not free to call them illegal or to call ICE. So what he's doing is he's taking away your free speech.
Right.
He's saying, oh no, you can say it, but I'm going to economically persecute you and ruin your life and take $250,000 out of your pocket and make you an indentured servant to the city of New York if you can't pay it up front.
Let me tell you something. I think the idea was that if anybody uses the words illegal alien, which is in the federal code, by the way, that's not something that racists made up. That is in the federal code. If the federal government wants to change that, well, there's a Congress of the United States. Let them change it then in the federal code, and then perhaps by the law we'll say something differently. Having said that, okay, I think it's supposed to be that if illegal alien is used in a accusatory way or a violent way or a
I think it's willful, wanton, and malicious.
Malicious. Now, Joe and I work in the city. All right, and in both of our jobs, we see a lot of rich guys. When a rich guy gets cut off, well, generally speaking, rich guys don't get cut off because they don't drive on the street, okay? And they're not in a position to call somebody an illegal alien out of any sort of malice. You know who does? Working class guys. Working class guys. You imagine, like, in other words, it's an iron worker. Okay, he's having a bad friggin' day because he got his fingers smashed by a big piece of iron, and somebody cuts him off or gets in his way, and he turns around and says, you illegal alien. That's a $250,000 fine. Or, let's be fair, up to a $250,000
and no one should be throwing around words like that. I don't advocate that at all, actually. But $250,000.
Joe, listen,
obscene.
$2.50. Again, the right to free speech. If I'm not attacking you on the street, if I'm not physically assaulting you, okay, I would never. In other words, I don't do that. Okay, I don't need these leftist thugs telling me what I can and cannot do. As a Roman Catholic man, I know exactly what the boundaries are, even in anger. Even if I'm angry at somebody, let's say on the street, somebody does something that's untoward or whatever the case might be. Okay, I know the boundaries. I don't need them telling me. But what if in a moment of anger, somebody says something? People say things in anger, okay? This is not exclusively a right-wing or left-wing thing, okay? People say things in anger. Again, I'm going to refer back to Planned Parenthood. I heard a lot of disgusting things said about Roman Catholics yesterday morning.
Nobody's finding
them $250,000.
How about saying the Lord's name in vain?
I have to hear that every day I go to work, and it's like a knife going in my ear every time I hear the Lord's name taken in vain. And it's a pretty disgusting ways. All right, and I'm not going to repeat on the show. But my point is, how is it that they're turning? Do they really think that they're going to remedy the problems in society? Let's say let's say that some people just don't like other people. Okay, that's human nature. There will always be some groups of people that don't like other people. They don't like their skin color. They don't like where they're from. They don't like their religion. They don't like their sexual orientation. There will always be those people. What are you going to do, Mayor de Blasio? You're going to fine them all, which you know you're not going to get a dime for.
It's funny. He's using the same tactic we just talked about. Take their money. You see, he gets it. You want to stop people from doing something, you strangle them financially.
That's right.
You don't have to raise your hand. You strangle them financially, and he understands that.
Right.
This is raw power.
That's power. You're right, Joe.
This is raw power. Basically saying, I am not. You say what you want to say, but I will take your money.
Sure.
That's what he's saying. He's using the power of the state, like you talked about, a jackboot on someone's throat.
Yeah.
That is just what this is.
That's exactly
and also,
what it
by
is.
the way, this is part of this is threatening to report someone to ICE. Let's just say, because this happens, it happens right where I live. I see it actually in my neighborhood. People use illegal immigrants to work.
Right.
Say, for instance, you know of a construction company who's picking up people on the corner in low-income areas. They do that all the time in New Jersey. Say you report them because you find out that this guy isn't paying his people. He's basically saying, after a week's work, I'm not going to pay you. And you report them to ICE. Are you too going to get fined for that? I think that's actually just, to be truthful with you, that this guy is employing people who are not basically papered.
Right.
And he's cheating them.
Right.
He's cheating them, which, by the way, happens. Why do you think people hire those people down the corner?
Because they figure it's easy to beat them. It's either easy to pay them not much money, certainly not as much money you're going to have to pay an American worker, who you're going to have to pay, pay a good wage to. You can get away paying them cheap, or you can like, well, these guys are illegal, or in their minds they think these guys are illegal, and they can work for me, and I'll screw them at the end of the week.
I had a guy come to my house to look at my fence. And he had a guy, I was talking to him when he was like going into his truck. He had a worker from Guatemala. I was just talking to him. He basically did all the work, and he basically had all the expertise. I was talking to the guy. I'm like, how many kids do you have? He's like, I have 5. I said, you give me your number. Next time I have a problem, I'll call you. I'd rather give you my money than give it to this guy who's not even paying you.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee he probably makes next to nothing. And he's got 5 kids.
Right.
He's like, I got 5 kids. I was like, give me your number. I'll call you when I need to get something fixed.
And the thing is, it's like, again, see how you could work and play well with others, okay, regardless of where they're from, and you show respect for him because he's a father and you're a father. The left doesn't like the story Joe just told. Oh, it's a white guy getting along with a Latino. Like, that's kind of like what goes through their head. They can't stand the fact, like guys like us, let's say, for argument's sake, like I said, we're Roman Catholic men. I'm not going to turn around to somebody and call them an illegal alien, no matter how angry I get. I'm not going to use certain words that might have been used in the past. Unfortunately, I'm a sinner that perhaps I've used in the past, okay? But you learn to correct yourself. And again, don't need Comrade de Blasio telling me by imposing up to $250,000 fine that I shouldn't call a guy an illegal alien.
Or report someone to ICE.
But now the whole ICE thing, though, let's be clear about this. I'm sorry. You're going to find me. If I have gang members in my neighborhood, okay, all these MS-13 guys, or somebody who maybe because of tattoos, and these guys are pretty easy to spot, all right, and I call up ICE and I say, who are these guys? They're in my neighborhood.
You're gonna get fined $250,000.
Right. If somebody in New York City did that, and then they go after. Remember, New York City is not just Manhattan. 5 boroughs, okay, out in Queens and out in Brooklyn. I'm sure there's a lot more problems in the Bronx. Probably a lot more problems like that. Staten Island. Guess what? De Blasio's going to fine you $250,000. And I did want to point out one bit of glaring hypocrisy. Okay, the birthplace of the American Civil Liberties Union, New York City. Where are they? Where are all the civil libertarian First Amendment champions? Where are they telling de Blasio, are you nuts?
They're in bed with de Blasio.
No, well, see, even the ACLU, whether you agree with them or not, and obviously Joe and I disagree with them on probably most things. I don't think that's far-fetched for me to say, okay? But even in the past, you would say that at least they're consistent. They turned around at one point very unpopularly, all right, and they supported the right of the Ku Klux Klan to march through Skokie, Illinois, in that famous case, okay? They were, again, whether or not you agree with that, they were at least consistent, okay? That, yes, these people had the right, no matter what you think of their message, to march down the street in Skokie, Illinois. They were champions of the First Amendment, freedom of assembly, freedom to protest. Where's the ACLU telling de Blasio? No, because the ACLU, again, love them or hate them, but they're not, they are completely now, they've thrown off any semblance of objectivity. All right, and fighting for civil rights that we all supposedly have. Now they've thrown that out the window. They're completely in bed with the hard left. Them, the problem with is the ACLU, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and the Anti-Defamation League. They are the three of the biggest enemies of the American people, aside from the mainstream media.
And if you look at the definition of groups that try to curtail speech, because that's exactly what de Blasio is doing. Just because he's allowing you to say it, he's also fining you an exorbitant amount of money. So he is curtailing your speech.
Right.
That's the definition of a fascist. He's a fascist. He calls us fascists. That's what fascists do. They determine what you can and cannot say. I'll be honest with you. You can say anything you want to me, but be prepared to defend it, because I will challenge you on it, and I like to think I'll challenge you in an intelligent way. So I invite any type of speech. You're free to say it. Bill de Blasio is saying here, no, you are not.
Right.
And that is not an American idea.
It's actually a very dangerous idea.
It is a very dangerous idea, because when you start having the state, and as I said, this is an example of raw power of the state. When you start having the state telling people what they can and cannot say, and or punishing them through exorbitant fines, that's a dangerous government.
That is.
That is a dangerous government. And just because you, quote unquote, have power right now in New York City, i.e. you're the mayor, 2 terms, it could flip the other way.
That's right. What happens?
Right.
Then what happens?
What if I imposed all of a sudden, like you see countries like Iran, I said, if you're not a practicing Catholic, I'm going to double your triple your taxes. By the way, that's what Islamic countries do to non-Islamic people.
Right. If
you're a Christian in Yemen, your taxes are higher.
It's called the jizya. You have to,
you have
to pay a tax.
So is that right? Absolutely not. I would never be for that, because that's why. A, that's not just. B, that's not American.
Right.
This is not an American idea. And just because it sides with your quote unquote voting bloc, it should disturb you, because it opens a door. It
opens a door you don't want open.
That could flip.
That's right.
It could flip, and it could flip against you.
Well, but again, the first 2 stories we covered, okay, Sai Amumba, all right, losing her job, all right, as a lead actress in The Color Purple in the UK, a $250,000 fine being imposed on the citizens of New York. Or I don't know if it just pertains to the citizens. If I'm from New Jersey,
it probably
maybe I can never go to New York City again. But there'll be a warrant out for me in New York. But my point is,
pay that.
In one case, we say all the time, again, without hyperbole, we're not exaggerating the case. Miss Booba lost her job. There will be fines. There's already been a couple fines, by the way, that have been levied against landlords. Okay, that's another story. But under the same law, my point is that we keep saying all the time, like Joe said, they're going to cost you money. They'll cost you your job. They'll cost you, in this case with this young lady, they're costing her her career, because the agents are walking away from her. This is where, again, the constant theme of this segment, or this whole show tonight, and all of our shows, is the need to make sure that, again, once more, ad nauseum, I'm going to repeat it, 150 judges have been nominated and are sitting on a bench because of Donald Trump, and there'll be at least another 150 by the time 2024 rolls around. We as a country need this. Government, people like Bill de Blasio think that we're a government of men. No matter how much lip service they pay to the Constitution, they believe they run the government, that there is no law that they're bound by, and they get friendly judges that impose that on the rest of us. We need the judges to say, no, this is a nation of laws. We have a Constitution, Mr. de Blasio. There are things you cannot do.
And that's what we're for. This is not a right and left conversation.
No, it's not.
This is an American conversation, a belief in a system, a belief in a document, the Constitution. I hear these things sometimes. I see it on social media when they bash Trump. They're like, we're fighting for the Constitution. Nancy Pelosi, give me a break.
What Constitution are you fighting for?
What Constitution is that? Did you write it with crayon?
Yeah.
What Constitution, Miss Pelosi?
Right.
Please.
See, but that sounds good to people.
And then everyone, they're like, oh, yeah.
Right,
you crazy?
Like a bunch of otters. But the thing is, remember something. If Joe and I talk about the danger of allowing, let's say, for argument's sake, de Blasio to get away with what he wants and others to get away with what they want, okay, we back it up because we tell you what's going on. We give you reasons why we call it dangerous. When Nancy Pelosi says it, she's just saying it as a talking point. Donald Trump is a danger to our Constitution.
No, it's to your Constitution.
Your version of the Constitution, and your leftist liberal buddies on the bench, their view and their interpretation of the Constitution. Okay, and you know nothing about the Constitution.
And that's why Barack Obama, and I invite you to look this up, had one of the worst records. We covered this on the show, of cases that were taken to the Supreme Court. He only won like 30% of the time.
Right.
One of the worst. Barack Obama, my friends, did not believe in this country as it stands.
No.
He did not. He wanted to change it.
Right.
Believe it. Look at the cases. Look it up.
Look at
he
Joe.
Took to the Supreme Court. Look, he lost 9-0 in many of them.
I think he had more unanimous decisions against him than any other president in recent.
And that's a fact. He does not believe in how the Constitution was crafted.
No.
And he.
But Joe, in fairness,
take my word for it. Look at what was taken to the Supreme Court.
Right.
Look at it. Look it up. It's common. Just Google it. You're Googling. People Google nonsense. Google something, then read about it.
Right.
So he did not believe in how the Constitution was crafted.
He said straight up, you don't need, like I said, Joe, you could go and you could see exactly what Obama's track record is as the Supreme Court. Remember, it's also his own words. He says in 3 days, almost like Jesus Christ, which is almost scary. In 3 days, this was 3 days before the election in 2008. In 3 days, we are going to fundamentally transform the United States of America. That's what he said. And guess what? If it wasn't for at least some kind of sanity in the courts, he would have. But like you said, you had even Ginsburg and Kagan, okay, going against him in a lot of these cases.
And their view of the law, if you ask me, is twisted. If you ask me.
But even they will admit on certain fundamentals, okay, like the right to free speech, the right to free expression of your religion, the right to free assembly, okay?
That is a dangerous thing to attack. Trust me. Look at history.
If you can't talk in this country, Joe, if you can't have a dialogue in this country, if you can't sit down, what did Isaiah say? Come, let us reason together. If we live in a country where we can't sit down and have a reasonable conversation with somebody with some serious fundamental disagreements and try to reason and find truth, okay, then we have a problem. We are not America. No matter what the left tries to suggest, okay, that, oh no, it's still America. And no matter what the right tries to suggest, well, as long as we have free markets, we still, no. If you do not have the First Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees the right to speech, free expression of religion, and freedom of assembly, we're done. America is not the same place. Does that mean something well,
people get arrested, people disappear,
or get fined $250,000 in New York City.
That's what happens. This is not something that happened 600 years ago. This happened in Chile under Pinochet. This happened in the Soviet Union under Stalin, not even 100 years ago. Right now, I'm reading Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. If a woman dated a foreign man, she was arrested. If a man even said an off-color remark about Stalin, you got 8 years in prison. This is what happens when you start losing these freedoms. That's why the founders crafted this document.
Sure.
It's so important to fight for and hold true to, regardless of what party you're from.
Right.
Whether it serves you or it doesn't serve you, because ultimately it serves the country as a whole, i.e. it serves your children. It's in your interest. And if you don't look at it that way, frankly, you're causing this country to fall apart.
But then you have to ask yourself, is that not their goal? Is the goal of the left the destruction of Western civilization, let's say, fully manifested?
What it is, Joe, it's to serve themselves. You see,
well,
the left,
that's what it is.
You see, socialism serves an elite group. These people, and this is why they hate Donald Trump. He does not fear them. Frankly, he's beating them left and right, and they're at their own game.
Mm-hmm.
They should figure that out. He's better at the game than they are.
Well, isn't that why we're going to get into the story about Kamala Harris? But isn't that why they're attacking him?
Course,
his ability to explain, to speak via Twitter, but nonetheless, his ability as an American citizen to speak.
But socialism, they're fighting to protect their own. They're fighting because what happens is in a socialistic society, the elite are above the fray. It's us that get destroyed.
Right.
We get pushed down, and it's very hard to climb out of the mud. Talk to people in Europe.
It actually is impossible. It really took an act of God to bring down that wall, and a lot of it started because of Pope John Paul II going to Poland in 1970.
It did, and by the way, I invite you to look at a good documentary, The 9 Days That Changed the World by Newt Gingrich, talking about just what he said. 9 days that John Paul spent in Poland, which started the Solidarity movement, which led to the fall of communism in Poland, which led to the Berlin Wall coming down, which led to the Soviet Union getting rid of communism, and Mikhail Gorbachev credited John Paul II for it.
Right. But now make no mistake, though, and then we'll move on. But make no mistake, communism in that form is dead. Okay, as far as Soviet Union doesn't exist.
China just celebrated 70 years of communism with a nuclear bomb going down the street.
Right.
Saying that it could reach the West Coast.
Right.
By the way,
so China, all right, is a communist threat. You still have many other communist nations, but please let's be clear. Okay, please let's be clear. And this isn't McCarthyite tax. It's just the truth. The other place that communism is alive and well is on the American university campus, in the intelligentsia, in academia, where It's somehow, some way, the murderous thugs of the left, the communist murderous thugs of the left, never really, their crimes never really get spoken about. That's all you ever hear about is Nazis, okay? But Stalin never gets thrown in there with them, and Mao and the rest of the thugs, because these people in their hearts, and this is what we're talking about, the fascists, remember we talked about how fascism and communism really are cut from the same cloth. I think Father Karapi said years ago, he said, fascism, communism, socialism, they all have their inception in the same place, the same pit of hell. And he was right. But the thing is, they're all cut from the same cloth. So communism is still alive and well in America, unfortunately, and it needs to be fought against. And one of the main tactics, then we'll move on, is to prevent you from exercising your fundamental constitutional rights.
Let's go to Virginia.
Let's give a quick shout out. Joe Romano joined Joe. Rita gave us a great compliment. You got to give a shout out to Rita. She said, "You guys are great." You're great too, Rita. Thanks for joining us at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. We are in deep in the breach. A lot of things going on in the culture war that we're in right now. So join us, please, every Sunday night, 8 o'clock, Facebook Live. Special shout out, Joe Campo in Brooklyn, Jonathan Ross, HolyFaith meet up in Toronto. Where are we headed there, brother?
By the way, my buddy Joe Romano's on. He's got a good business. He takes care of plumbing and sewers in the area. Look him up.
Look him up.
He's good stuff. Anyway, had to give you a little shout.
We love the plugs. Joe, don't worry about it. You don't owe us anything for that plug.
Let's go to Virginia. West Point High School, Peter Vleming was fired. Didn't we just go to
we kind of were talking about something like this.
Yeah, but this is in America. This isn't the UK. This is in Virginia. He was fired for refusing to use transgender pronouns. By the way, he's suing the school for $1 million. Good for you, Peter.
Good.
Let's give a little background as far as how this came about. One of his female students returned from summer break having transitioned to living as a boy and wanted to be recognized as such. Mr. Vleming stated his Christian faith prevented him from calling a girl he or him. Good for you. I feel the same way. I would never do it. I couldn't do it, actually. The West Point School Board voted unanimously to fire him despite an outpouring of support for Mr. Vleming from parents and students. He was loved, and he was a great teacher. Basically, his lawsuit is seeking damages for violating his freedom of speech, sound familiar? Mm-hmm. And his constitutional rights, as well as violating his religious convictions. This is in America. He lost his job for basically not, and by the way, he said if you look this up, he was very respectful of the young lady, and in fact, it was one of his best students. He just did not want to call her a him.
He even called her by the name that she would. By the way, Joe and I our heads would be in the guillotine because we're calling her.
Our heads will eventually be in the guillotine.
Eventually. We'll go to heaven.
I actually know that. I tell my wife that all the time.
The guy who chops our head off will go to hell. Joe and I, God willing, will go to heaven. It's a her. But here's the thing. He wouldn't use the pronoun that goes against her natural sex, the sex assigned to her at conception, okay? She is a female of the species, but he did call her by her preferred name. Now, he had enough respect for her to do that. He called her by her preferred name, but would not call her him or he. And that was his sin.
And he was fired. He was fired.
Yeah.
And this is what we're up against. This is the world right now in the U.S. This is why we need sound judges to protect people like this. Now, there are people out there listening to my voice say, good, he should have been fired. What are you talking about?
Right.
He's not disrespecting this person. What about his rights?
Right.
Does he count? Does his religious convictions count?
No, Joe, they don't.
They don't.
They don't.
And here's the thing. He's not being disrespectful. He said he would call
her by the name that she preferred.
He just wouldn't use the pronoun.
Right. But that is the sin. Remember something. Again, we talk about it sometimes from once in a while on the show. When you look at, let's say, for argument's sake, George Orwell's 1984. Okay, what is one of the main strategies or goals of the left? The destruction of language. When words don't mean anything, or don't mean what they're supposed to mean, okay? When you can actually use a word to call somebody him, but it's not a him. But you will adapt yourself and you'll convince yourself that it is a him, when in fact, by nature and in reality, it is a her. But this is one of the things they do. It's the destruction of language, the distortion of language. So what do? They pervert some words, they change other words, they completely obliterate other words and take them out of the dictionary, okay? This is what the left does. Because remember something, when you speak, again, this show probably should be titled just Freedom of Speech, okay? Speech is given by God. Let's get it straight. The ability to speak to one another, okay, is given by God. Didn't come from grunts and didn't come from evolution. It was given to our first parents by God himself, the ability to communicate with one another, all right? And because when you communicate with one another, okay, you dialogue to arrive at truth. You ask questions, let's say Socrates, you ask questions.
That's what education
That's what education is supposed to be. When you prevent and the truth, which is supposed to be, and is supposed to be those ideas which correspond to reality. And in the case of Professor Vlaming, okay, is that his name? Professor Vlaming, all right? His response was a truthful response. I will not call you a pronoun that does not correspond with reality. That's the truth.
Not your reality.
Reality. Because there is no your reality or Joe and Joe's reality. There is one reality, okay? And if your ideas do not correspond to that reality,
that doesn't change reality.
Right, which means that, but this is what the devil does by trying to turn lies into the truth and the truth into lies. So Professor Vlaming is now going to be a bad guy, and he's a hater because he won't lie with his speech. And to call this young lady a him or a he is lying. This is so fundamental to freedom. The ability to sit down or scream into a camera or to dialogue with somebody unfettered and without the government in our face. So fundamental to our freedom that we have to, this is bad. I mean, I hate to sound this way, but this stuff, and this is, again, we're going to say it over and over and over, the only thing that stops this are judges. They're the only ones who could stop this thuggery from going on. What's the case here? He's suing, right?
Yeah, he's suing for $1 million.
And we need a judge to award him that $1 million.
I think he should get more than that.
I do too. I do too.
Actually.
Because $1 million nowadays, if I don't know how old this guy is,
I would ask
that's not enough to
more
retire.
than that.
Million's not enough to
Something
retire.
very similar actually happened to me. I work in the banking industry. This is a number of years ago when Bruce Jenner transitioned. And there were some people, this was after work, it was after 5, a couple people were talking, and I basically, you know, was involved in the conversation. This was my sin. What I said was, I actually feel sorry for him. They of course took like the politically correct, oh, Joe, what, that's a horrible thing to say. A director overheard what I said. I actually got called into a conference room and actually got written up. And I tried to throw the religious card at them to think that might scare them. I was like, well, I'm a Catholic. And they were like, well, what if you're offending someone? I said, what if you're offending me? That's what I said. Didn't matter. This is the world we live in, my friends.
Right.
You are not free to say what you want to say or even what's right. Here, we just covered a story about someone who's not illegal. They came here illegal. And Joe gave the example. Say they're with a gang and you call ICE. New York State can fine you $250,000 for reporting an illegal alien. And they are just that.
Right.
They're illegal.
So again, you're telling the truth by referring to somebody as an illegal alien, because that's what they are, as again, written in the federal code. You're telling the truth, and it will cost you up to $250,000. I think it's New York City, by the way, but either way, the state would probably do it soon enough anyway. But that is exactly what we're dealing with. Again, this episode should very simply be called the free speech episode at the front line with Joe and Joe, because that's what we're going through. But the bottom line is, there's a lot of people who are watching us that appreciate the right to speak freely and that have the nerve and the guts to express their views. Amy checked in. She said the Merces are watching. Hi, Amy.
Love it.
Susan, one of our new friends, she's out in Colorado. We love Suzanne. Excuse me. And yes, Suzanne, we are living, well, I'm going to say this. It looks a lot like 1984, Orwell's 1984, if we don't speak up. Remember what Dietrich Bonhoeffer said. Evil can only thrive if good men do nothing. Well, Joe and I want to be and strive to be good men by being two good followers of Jesus Christ and his church, okay? We are trying to do something. What's the best way to do it? That's why this show is so great that we're doing tonight, by speaking first, opening your mouth, standing up for the truth, and proclaiming it boldly to a very, very sick and perverted culture.
And what you have to do is, if you're penalized or punished, what we saw this in the UK, with that actress. We saw this in Virginia with the teacher. You have to sue them.
That's right.
You have to get a lawyer, and as it stands, we have rights. We have the First Amendment, and you sue them. And that's how you beat them.
Right.
You don't tolerate it. You say, okay, you want to go to the mat? Well, let's go.
And show no mercy.
None.
No.
Zero.
Mercy.
You want to fight? Well, we're going to fight. And we're going to fight in court.
Right.
I'm taking your money. And I'm taking a lot of it. And that's how you fight it. And that's exactly what you do.
And listen.
And watch the HR person sweat, as you say.
That's right. Listen, these corporations, let's finish this segment real quick on corporations, what we need to do. We need to put together, I know there's some resources for it, some lists of corporations. Maybe we could reach out to the Catholic League. I know Bill Donahue, he chronicles things like this. We got to start costing these corporations money. If a bank is flat out doing what they did to Joe to their employees, or basically a theater group is like Hamilton was responsible for getting this girl fired in the UK. Conservative people out there, when you come to New York to visit, don't go see Hamilton, please. Don't spend any money on Broadway. Don't spend any money on the movies. I know it's difficult. I know it requires a sacrifice. But you know what? These are things we don't need in our life. And you know what, Joe's point about money? We are the ones that put the money in their pocket because we don't stand up and do something about it. I told this story before. I'll tell it again. I stopped doing business with a bank because that bank was giving money to Planned Parenthood. And what I did was I called up, there's a group out in the Midwest called the Ave Maria Mutual Funds, run by Roman Catholics, faithful Roman Catholic. Lou Holtz is on their board. Larry Kudlow was on their board. Okay, faithful Roman Catholic that runs the mutual fund will not invest money in that fund that invests in businesses that do anything that contradicts or violates Catholic teaching. So I called up very simply. I only say this as an example of what we all could do. And they told me, I said, do you know any banks that your fund invests in? Because I need a bank, because I don't want to do business with Wells Fargo anymore because they support Planned Parenthood. They gave me a bank. That day I went to Wells Fargo. This was a couple of years ago. I closed out all my accounts and I moved them over to the new bank.
And that's what they understand.
That's what they understand.
That's how they get it.
I'm just Joe Pasillo here in Jersey. But imagine if by using my right to free speech, I was able, and Joe was able, to get 1 million people to do that, to get 10 million people to do that. You think Wells Fargo would stop giving money to Planned Parenthood?
Oh, yes.
Again, I don't want them to give money to the Roman Catholic Church. I'll give money to the Roman Catholic Church. Joe will. Other Catholics. We'll put the money in the poor box. We don't want you writing checks to the church, but we don't want you writing checks to Planned Parenthood either. You're supposed to be neutral. You're not supposed to take sides on this, you oligarchs, but yet you do because you're looking to control us the same way the government does. You promote usury like it's going out of style. You take usurious compound interest, you drive people into debt you know they can't get out of. That's another sin we're going to cover, okay, in a really in-depth expose of how usury is promoted in this country. But let's stick to the point. The point is fight them back and cost them money. And if it means that we can get 1 million, 10 million, 50 million people to start boycotting some of these companies and costing them money, let me tell you something. Joe's right. Their boards of directors are going to go, listen.
They're God's money. They could care less about Planned Parenthood.
Right.
It's just politically correct to support them right now.
Right.
They'll turn on them faster than you can blink a friggin' eye.
If this country turned decidedly more Catholic all of a sudden, and evangelicals and conservative Jews and conservative Muslims all of a sudden came into the Catholic Church and we had a more Catholic America, these people would be the biggest fans of the Vatican you ever saw. Because they're all about money. So I don't trust them when they claim to be on our side either. I don't trust any of them. What I want them to do is provide their product or service, and I want them to do it in a culturally, politically, and religiously neutral way. Just serve me your hamburger. Just let me do my banking and shut your mouth. I don't care, Lloyd Blankfein, that Goldman Sachs supports gay marriage. I really don't. Okay, I don't care, Burger King, that you support Planned Parenthood. I really don't. Just serve me the damn burger, all right? And if you're going to keep giving money to Planned Parenthood, I'll go to Wendy's. They have a better burger anyway.
There you go. Let's go to Twitter. Our friend Kamala Harris was in the news this week.
See, I was having a good time. I was having a good time tonight. I was getting a little angry, but I was having a good time tonight until Joe mentioned Kamala Harris.
Okay, so this is a good one, and this is a direct attack on free speech. Kamala Harris called on Twitter. She actually tweeted the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, to suspend Donald Trump's Twitter account. This was the tweet that sparked the whole deal. I'm going to read it to you. This is what Donald Trump tweeted, and this is what triggered Kamala Harris. This is what he said. He said, "As I learn more and more each day, I am coming to the conclusion that what is taking place is not an impeachment. It is a coup intended to take away the power of the people, their vote, their freedoms, their Second Amendment, religion, military, border wall, and their God-given rights as a citizen of the United States of America." Now, the word that set Kamala Harris off was coup. And by the way, it is a coup.
It is a coup.
It is a coup. This is a mark on this country, whether you like Donald Trump or not. Hear what I'm saying. If you despise Donald Trump, by the way, I despised Barack Obama, not the man, his policies. They made me itch. But I would not be for a coup to take him out. Why? Because it's dangerous.
And it's un-American.
It's dangerous. This is what banana republics do.
Right.
This is a joke. We covered it. It cost $25 million in 2 years of our time, the Russia hoax. And it was just that.
Oh.
It was tried. $25 million of our taxpayer dollars. Now you have this garbage posturing. She's not even going to put it to a vote. By the way, an impeachment, there's 4 stages to an impeachment process. The inquiry in Congress is the first stage. The second stage is a vote in the Congress. She's horrified to do it. Why? Because legally she has no grounds. None.
And she also doesn't want to put those 31 Democrat congressmen, okay, who won in districts that Donald Trump won in 2016. She doesn't want, she's shielding them. And again, politically speaking, a good speaker is supposed to do that. Okay, I don't blame her for that. But she is, and that's why we're here to just shed light on it. She is shielding them because she does not want to put them on record. And so if they do vote against impeachment, they probably will get reelected. Okay, in those districts. Maybe not, maybe half of them will. But if they vote for impeachment and Trump has a groundswell going in other words, which it looks like he probably will, the bottom line is those 31 congressmen are, as they say in French, histoire. Okay, nice. They are gone. I know that word. I learned. I paid a little attention. Hey, it's appropriate. Professor Vlaming, he was a French teacher.
I like it.
All right, but they are history. All right, because the groundswell is going to take in Donald Trump, and his coattails are very easily going to take out those 31 Democratic congressmen. That's why Nancy Pelosi does not want a vote. She wants to appease. She's trying to walk a very fine line, trying to appease the base, but then she's got to take care of these people who are not necessarily they're Democrats, but they're not in lockstep, and they certainly want to remain in power. But anyway, like Joe said and started this off, it is a coup.
And who is Kamala Harris to say that Donald Trump or anyone for that matter can't use Twitter and say what they feel? Who the heck are you? In plain English,
right?
You have every right to put whatever you want on Twitter. I have no problem with it. I'll disagree with it, but you have a right to, and so does he. She says it's a privilege. No, it's not.
It's a right.
It's a right, and it scares the hell out of
But here's the thing, Miss Harris, Senator Harris. You got to remember something. One thing you lefties are always got to be mindful of with them. They do what they have to do in the moment. They don't think about consequences, or they don't care about consequences. Kamala Harris is not thinking into the future. If there's a groundswell in this country, and the Senate and the House go way to the Republicans, and Donald Trump gets a third term in the form of somebody in the Republican Party who's going to be more like
Josh Hawley,
all right, Josh Hawley or somebody like that, are you going to be a little upset, a little ticked off, Senator Harris, if one of those people sends a tweet to Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, and say, Kamala Harris shouldn't be on here because it's a privilege to be on here.
And shuts her down.
You would not be in favor of that.
And neither would I.
That's right. The difference is we are consistent. You could say whatever tripe you want on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and the rest of it. You could go on all your comrades on MSNBC and CNN and the rest of it and spew whatever nonsense you want to. I will not stop or would ever encourage anybody to stop you from speaking and take away your First Amendment rights. You cannot say the same, fascist.
Because we're American.
We're American.
That's why. We're American.
Wait, hold it. That impersonation probably ticked you off because you know who that was? That was W.
We're American with a capital M.
All right.
I'm an American with a capital M.
But see these champions, and then again, one more time, Joe. One more time. Let's hammer it home. Where's the ACLU? Where's all those civil libertarians? Where's the champions of free speech when it comes to defending the free speech rights of the President of the United States? Okay, where are they? Where are their voices? All my life, that's all I've heard about was from the ACLU. We're civil libertarian. Alan Dershowitz, civil libertarian, civil libertarian, civil libertarian. All right, where are they in defense of Donald Trump and his right to freedom of expression? Now, I just throw a couple things out, Joe, real quick. Suzanne asked what bank it was. I went to TD. TD evidently. Now, but them too, in other words, here we are, fast forward 2 years later, okay, TD has a big sign in its window that they support the LGBT community, so I don't know how long that's going to last. I might have to make another phone call to the Ave Maria Fund. And Roseanne says that she did that long ago, and Roseanne buys her yarn. Here you go, the lips are going to get ticked off with this one. At Hobby Lobby. Love it, Roseanne. I did mention Wendy's. Roseanne mentioned that Wendy's, and this is true, I found this out, not just from Roseanne, she's saying it also. I found out from Bill Donahue. Burger King supports abortion. They support Planned Parenthood. Wendy's supports adoption and encourages adoption, not abortion. And the Baconator is the greatest sandwich ever created.
There it is.
It crushes the Big Mac,
That's
too.
enough reason right there.
You know, and you're right, Maureen. Just to touch on it, Maureen comment. The problem is that you can't dismiss gender and what it means naturally, intuitively, and instinctively. Again, Maureen. Again, what is the first thing the Catholic Church would say when it comes to gender ideology? That it goes against, leaving aside Scripture for a moment, which I'm not trying to brush aside Scripture, but leaving aside Scripture, what does the Church usually base its teaching on fundamentally? The natural law. This is what you know by nature. This is what's
written on your heart.
It's written on your heart by the Almighty Himself. Okay? Even if you're an atheist, you can't say that you don't have a respect for the natural law, because even you know when something is right and something is wrong. You have a sense of justice and injustice. I think it's distorted, okay? But you can't say that you have no concept of justice, and that's what it is, Maureen. Remember something, all of this, everything we're going through, from abortion, gender ideology, the whole thing is to uproot what we know by nature, or the natural law. We know it by law. We could defend it, of course, by evoking the natural law. Yes, as religious people, as Catholics, we refer to Scripture and magisterial teaching of the Church and the tradition of the Catholic Church for 2,000 years. But undergirding it is always the natural law, and it's the natural law that appeals to not just Catholics, but all people, because God writes that natural law on the hearts, as Joe said, of every single human being. But what they want you to do is to reject and deny the natural law. And we are not going to do that.
No way.
That was Professor Vlaming saying, I won't call a girl a him or a he. It's a violation of the natural law. I'm not going to lie. Isn't that really what he said?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is our last segment of the night. We're going to go to Michigan. Now, keep this in mind. These are things going on now in this country. And it's coming to a theater near you soon. And this is why it's important, as we've said a million times, to vote for Donald Trump. Why? For judges.
Well, when we hear this story, we're gonna end our show tonight with a more encouraging story. And again, as yet another example, we started in the beginning talking about Mike Church over at the Crusade Channel, making mention of the fact that judges have blocked every piece of pro-life legislation that has been passed, Georgia heartbeat bill and everything else. And this is something that's why we need more judges. We need more judges. We need more of Trump's judges. Okay, but now here's a bit of, what should we call it? Hopeful story.
Absolutely.
When it comes to the importance of judges and sticking it to the leftist thugs.
Basically what happened here, Universal officials at Wayne State University, this is in Michigan, are held personally liable for discrimination against a Christian student group. Let me give you a little background.
I love this story.
Basically, the Wayne State chapter of InterVarsity was shut down by the university over allegations that the organization's policies on non-Christian student leaders is discriminatory. Now, that just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a Christian organization, they have every right to demand that their leadership should be Christian. Just as if you have a communist organization, you have every right to demand that the leadership is communist. Why? Because they're going to basically write, like, you know, policies that are going to, like, espouse to what they believe.
Right. Or the better example here, I agree with you, the better example here would be, are they going to force the atheists to put Roman Catholics in their leadership position so that they can sit there and they can make decisions that go against the interests of the atheist group? Now, again, Joe and I being fair, valuing free speech, I want a Roman Catholic group to argue with the atheists. But I'm not going to sit on their board.
No way.
I don't want to sit on their board. We know that this is a means by which they want to cause trouble for a Christian group.
They want to control the Christian group.
Of course. But now, because of judges, where are we going, Joe?
Basically, in the fall of 2017, the university revoked the chapter's official recognition and canceled all of their scheduled meetings. Now, as Joe was saying, this is why judges are important. So, the U.S. District Judge, and names are important, Robert Cleland, published an opinion denying Wayne State's motion for summary judgment, arguing that the student organization had sufficiently established that they deserved the chance to argue that their First Amendment rights were violated. He's doing his job.
That's right.
You see, this is not a right or left issue. This is his job, and he's upholding the Constitution.
Right.
This is why we need sane judges, not activists. You want to be an activist? Go get a picket sign and get a what's it called? What do you call it? A certificate to march in the street from town hall. A permit.
Right.
Being a judge, that's not your role. Your role is to hold to the law, to uphold the law, and that's just what he did. This is not a right or left issue.
Right, it's a constitutional issue, the right to free assembly. Listen, people don't like to hear this. People have the right to associate with whomever they
whether
want.
You agree with them or not.
That's right. Look, if you got a bunch of people who hate Roman Catholics, and they all have a group, and they exclude Roman Catholics, guess what? I'm not going to go call the ACLU or some leftist judge to demand of that group that they give me.
By the way, there's things they're called country clubs.
Yeah.
They do that.
Yeah.
Don't think they don't. They do that to Jewish people. They do that to Christian people.
They've done that to black people
Catholic
in the past.
People. They do that to black people.
Hey,
don't think that doesn't go on. It's called co-ops in New York City.
They exclude
Don't think that doesn't go on.
Right.
That's a fact.
And that's liberal New York City.
And by the way, that's why you need sound judges to fight that.
Right.
That's not allowed. You can't exclude a person based upon their race, based upon their religion. But in this particular case, that's not excluding, because it's saying we're a Christian organization and we basically expect our leadership to be Christian. What's wrong with that? They're not hiding anything.
No.
The instances I just talked about, co-op associations in fancy areas in New York City, country clubs.
They're the most exclusionary places
Absolutely.
there are. And they're all full of liberals.
Absolutely.
They're all the Upper West Side. Those co-ops up there, they're all full of liberals. Everybody's a liberal. Oh, I voted for Obama. I feel I'm such an enlightened person. You exclude people left and right. I heard co-ops are amongst the hardest things to get into, and they discriminate. You see, they discriminate. They discriminate on grounds that you would normally drive the left bonkers. You know, let's say a guy's a working class guy. Let's say a guy hit the lottery.
They still don't want you.
Right? They still don't want you. It doesn't matter how much money you have, because you're not one of them. Okay. What if somebody's conservative? You know, these places are all full with liberals. What if somebody's conservative? What if they question your political
beliefs? Actually, my wife has just told me, one of her friends at work, they're just putting a bid for a place down by Columbia, Morningside Heights, real fancy place. Mm-hmm. And they're conservative from Virginia.
Okay.
And basically, the wife was just saying he's like a CFO of some fund, and she was just like, keep your mouth shut. Go, and this is real. This is going on actually right now. They're interviewing them for some fancy building.
And it's good that you're pointing out the double standard, okay? But see, forget about double standards. How about the consistent standard, which is why Joe and Joe are here to talk about what is the consistent standard that we need to go by in these cases? The United States Constitution, okay, which guarantees the right to free speech, free exercise of religion, and freedom of association.
And that's why the founders crafted it, and that's why we have to fight for it, whether you're voting for Donald Trump or not.
But make it clear, Joe, about this story. I might have missed it. I was looking at some of the comments. The judge is allowing the lawsuit to move forward.
Correct, absolutely.
The judge is saying
they have every right.
They have every right to sue.
Absolutely.
And now it goes to court. Wayne State, I hope they end up like Oberlin. I hope they end up paying $30 million to this Christian group. All right, that's the bottom line. Joe said it right. First, we hit them with our voice, with our speech, with our reason, with our truth, the truth, okay? And then when you get to that point where you got them backed into a corner and they make a mistake, then cost them money.
That's it.
Cost them money.
And then they'll back away.
That's right.
That's how you do it. Because right now, as in right this second, we do have a constitution. And we do have a document that speaks for itself. And frankly, that's why we need judges. I'll say it. I've said it 700 times. I'm going to say it 701 times. That's why we have to elect Donald Trump to put judges who are not activists and basically want to uphold the law of the land.
If Donald,
not the Republican law.
No.
The law.
The law. That's why if Joe and I were privileged enough, okay, to be on the campaign trail with Donald Trump, and people give speeches. A lot of people go up and give like a 5-minute speech or whatever. Someone will give a speech on the economy. Someone will give a speech on trade. Somebody will give a speech on foreign policy and express those reasons for voting for Donald Trump. I would go all across the country for this guy, all the places out there where people have common sense and say, Joe and I are two average Joes from North Jersey who, yes, have liked a lot of things Donald Trump has done, not like some of the other things that he has done. But at the end of the day, we are going to enthusiastically vote for him because he fulfilled his pledge to nominate conservative judges, and he's going to continue to do so, which will, again, Donald Trump's not the savior. Jesus Christ is, all right? But what does it do in the meantime? Sane judges allow us to get in the trenches and get in the breach without being shown the door of our jobs, without being fined by Mayor de Blasio for $250,000 for a slip of the tongue maybe, or even not a slip of the tongue, okay? For all these things and the way they can attack us. If we have the judges who will defend our First Amendment rights and our constitutional rights, then we can more freely get into the breach, more confidently get into the breach, because we know we're exercising our constitutional rights. That's what has them so afraid. That's what has them so afraid. They don't want you in the breach. I saw it yesterday. A prayerful group of people marching, praying the rosary, and witnessing against the murders that are going on in Planned Parenthood. And they are being confronted viciously by a leftist mob. And all they're doing is walking down the street, trying to get to a point where they can continue their prayers when they're done with their prayers and walk back. That's what we're fighting for. That's what we're fighting for.
And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You just speak the truth. The truth is like a lion. Let it loose, it will defend itself.
That's right.
One person can speak the truth to the whole world, and one person did. And now it's our turn.
Sure. So hang in there, and please hang with us on Sunday nights, 8 o'clock, Facebook Live every Sunday night. We're going to be talking about all these things. We're trying to put together a few good interviews that we think you might like. But like I said, we and Joe was saying, we're in the breach, we're staying in the breach, and we're going to keep going until we win this war. Okay? And we'll continue to fight these wars, this culture war, until we drop dead. And hopefully the next generation will take it up after us, and we'll have some sanity left in the world. But in the meantime, couple shout outs, please. Follow us on Facebook at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Please share our videos with your friends, people you think that might like it, people you think that might hate it. All right, there's a com box right here, and anybody could chime in, even when the video's up on our page. I did mention earlier in the beginning of the show, Mike Church, the Crusade channel. I would encourage anybody to not only subscribe to his channel on YouTube, but please go look at that video. It was a very good one. I thought it was hard-hitting on abortion and challenging men of the South to do something. It's called Do You Stand? Mike Church, Crusade channel. Do You Stand with Alyssa Milano and Planned Parenthood? Put that in the search bar and the video will come right up.
And also check out HolyFaith Media. Jonathan
Yeah.
Ross, he does a lot of good work up there, and he does a lot of good work, to be honest with you, for us. And thank you once again, Jonathan. We're forever grateful.
Yep. So thank you all for joining us, Roseanne and everybody. Maureen, we love you for joining us. We thank you for your support. And remember, our conversation is your conversation. And that conversation, that's going on everywhere. See you next time.
Thank you for listening.